It's time to do the autopsy. What's up, everyone? Welcome to Walsh's Playbook. That's former Raiders offensive coordinator Tom Walsh. I'm Grant Cohn, and the last time we spoke, we were talking about how the Niners just might go to the Super Bowl. We thought the Niners would beat the Seahawks. We thought they learned something, but we learned something that the Niners are not nearly as good as Seattle. Tom, in your eyes, what was the meaning of that 41-6 blowout defeat?
You know, the hardest thing, Grant, is there are so many areas for which I have a concern. And, it tells me that they have a much farther road to travel than they think they have to get to where they want to be or where they should want to be. And to be honest, I don't know if their leadership is willing to make some of the steps and take some of the action that it needs to take to be able to allow the ball club to get to that point for next season.
Yeah, I was at that postseason, like this end of year press conference yesterday, and it really felt like John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan were patting themselves in the back, like no one thought we could do it this year, and we did it. And sure, we didn't go that far, and the last game was, not what we wanted. But I mean, we're getting guys back next year. Of the future is so bright. And then Steve Young went on the radio yesterday, and his point was like, look, you were 12-5 this year, you were 6-11 the year before that. The two teams were pretty similar. The 6-11 year, you had some breaks go against you. The 12-5 year, you had some breaks go for you. But it looks kind of like a 9-8 team to me. That's what Steve Young said, and I feel like that's what this. You didn't just lose to Seattle. You got wiped off the freaking field, and you lost in 13 seconds.
Yeah, you get destroyed. The thing about it is, I hate to say it, the hardest thing to do as a coach, and even for Lynch as a GM, is to take and peel back the layers of the onion, so to speak, and take a hard, long look at your coaches, at your organization, at your draft process, at your free agent signing process, at your roster, and to be able to say, regardless of how aligned at the hip I might be with a particular player, for example, it's time to shed that player. And I don't know if those two guys, meaning Lynch and Shanahan, have, okay, I don't know if they have the cojones to be able to make that determination. Can they make that move? Can they separate? Can they be a professional coach, a professional GM, rather than a personal relationship with a player? That's the point. You get too tight to these players, too buddy, too friends, the Cabo click and all that crap. And then, you know what? You can't cut them when you should have cut them, and they end up cutting your throat, not because they want to, but because they have surpassed their expiration date as a player for you to be able to contribute to your organization, to be able to contribute to the success of your ball club. For this year, for example, Grant, we talked about this from day one. They had the best schedule of any team in the NFL. Okay. Now, granted, they had injuries with Purdy and his, big toe and all that, but Mac Jones played admirably as a replacement. They had other injuries. They didn't pace players well. They overplayed guys with reps. They didn't develop some of the younger players to contribute in games when they needed them, because Kyle ends up playing the guys he likes and he runs them, like till they're like a nag. But those are issues that they need to analyze. And I tell you what, if they don't change at the top, nothing at the bottom is going to change. Next year, they're going to have a tougher schedule because they finished higher up this year. They weren't the basement dweller they were the previous year. So they're going to have a tougher schedule. So that's right off the bat. Secondly, a lot of key players who were aging to begin with are going to be even another year older and or coming off of more surgeries. And so they've got some issues.
I mean, they can say, look, we gave up 41 points, but we're missing so many players on defense. The defense will be better next year. Yeah, but this game also revealed that the offense has major issues as well. And I think that's what's alarming. 6 points. And is it that Kyle Shanahan doesn't have the schematic answers against Mike McDonald? Possible. We can talk about that in a second. But I think what was so obvious is that there is a talent discrepancy between Seattle and the 49ers. Seattle has all these young players who are stars, guys on their first contract who are top 10 players at their position. Devin Witherspoon, Nick Emanwari, Gray Zabel, on and on and on. The Niners have none. No young stars on their rookie contracts. And that's a huge problem. It's because they haven't drafted well this decade. That's a big difference.
Okay. The other thing that's key now, and I will bring up a little bit of a sore point probably to the franchise. You traded how many first-round draft picks and other draft picks for Trey Lance? You blew 3 picks. So now you wonder why your roster is a skeleton of Pro Bowl talent. You gave away 3 potential Pro Bowl players for a kid who, for whatever reason, did not pan out as your quarterback. So your cupboard's bare in that regard. So that is that's 3 Pro Bowl potential starters that are not on your roster. They're somewhere else in the league, but they're not wearing 49er colors. And so and then the other thing is they've had, unfortunately, to be honest, they've made some big bust in early round draft picks. I mean, I go back to some of the players they've taken over the years who crapped out because of injuries or other issues. They've squandered draft picks in the first 2 rounds. They've come up empty. I mean, think about this. Go back through their draft. Tell me now, who's playing as a starter on that roster who was a first-round draft pick in the last 3 years?
Only guy is Ricky, and I don't know that he's going to be on this team next year.
You're talking about Ricky Pearsall.
Yeah.
Right now, he's a medical question mark to me. I can't count him as a surefire, block as a first-round draft pick who's panned out for me. The guy's been in the training room more than he's been on the field. So, I mean, name me another guy.
Michael Williams in the training room. Michael Williams is in the training room. Brandon Ayuk is gone. Javon Kinlaw is gone. McGlinchey's gone. Solomon Thomas is gone. Reuben Foster's not in the league. I mean, they don't have any.
They don't have anybody. So think about that. How many what's that, 5 or 6 guys?
Yeah.
Who are, not even seen or not even in the organization.
Oh, he's hurt too.
Yeah, Bosa's also recouping from another ACL. So they really, to be honest, you can't name a pick in the last 5 or 6 first and second rounders who's producing now for this ball club.
No. One more thing that Steve Young said. I'm always interested to see what Steve says in the Niners because he's smart and he's invested. He said that even when healthy, this is the 3rd best team in the division. And the Niners have to be honest about that. Even when Nick Bosa and Fred Warner come back, the meaning of this loss to Seattle is that you're the 3rd best team in the division because you haven't developed any young stars, and the Rams and the Seahawks have. And until you do, you're going to be behind them. And that could be, years.
The other thing too now, think about the trades the Rams have made over the years and look at the lower round draft picks they have made who have panned out for them, who have become starters and significant contributors. You take this kid, Puka Nacua, the guy was a 5th round draft pick. Okay. Mm-hmm. The guy's lighting it up in the league. He had 129 catches this year for 1,700 something yards, 10 touchdowns or whatever. You could add up.
Kyron Williams was the 5th round pick as well.
You could add up the whole Niner receiver core, and can they equal the production of one Puka Nacua?
No.
Not even close.
No.
Not even close.
Puka Nacua is what the Niners wish Juwan Jennings was, but he's not.
And so the thing about it is, besides the players who they have, I'm concerned about who's making the draft picks and on what basis they're evaluating this talent, because right now they've been peeing down their leg the first couple of rounds of drafts for the last 4-5 years.
Okay, well, that's a pretty good transition. Let me ask you this. Do the 49ers need a new general manager in your eyes? It seems like the 49ers are quite content to change nothing because, hey, they beat the Philadelphia Eagles. They were the Super Bowl champions and they exceeded expectations. So let's just keep things the same. I'm more of the school of thought that something needs to change for them to get over the hump, something they haven't been able to do. And we've just talked about their draft history the last 4 years. Would you put this at the feet of John Lynch? Do you think they need a new general manager?
You know, to be honest, I don't know what John's official duties are and how involved he is in the draft, how involved he is with sitting down with the scouts and going over the draft eligible players as well as the free agents available on the market. Uh, and from my perspective, the Niners need a guy like a Ron Wolf. They need a guy like Elliot Wolf. They need
Mm,
a personnel guy who's not the head coach's buddy, but the guy who calls it like he sees it and says,
mhm,
hey, this guy's a lemon, this guy's a lime, this guy's a diamond, this guy is, a zirconian, but
mm,
someone's got to be able to make the statement and say, no, that's not the guy we need to draft. We need to draft
mhm.
this guy. We need to draft that guy. We don't need to draft this guy because they don't measure up. It's how many medical red shirts are you going to take over the years, as the Niners have had a history for a decade and a half of taking guys, who's are coming out of operating rooms even in college. I don't know if the Niners have a real personnel guy. I don't look at John Lynch as a personnel guy. John is, in my mind, is like a PR guy who is the face of the organization, who they can trot out there before the media. He's going to come across as pseudo intelligent with his Stanford background. He's going to look well groomed. He's not wearing a backwards hat like some of the, Niner guys before the media. He's not looking like a stumble bum. He's clean shaven. He's dressed up nice. He's got a button down shirt, a sports jacket on. That's John. But that's not the personnel guy I'm looking for
No.
in that organization. See, that's
Yeah.
the difference. John has a job, but if I was Jed York, I'm saying, okay, it's time for me to go out and get a real personnel guy, not a guy who's just a nice spokesman for me.
I love it. And they have Ethan Waugh, who they brought in. He was with them, then he went to Jacksonville, and he came back, and he was a Balky guy. And they have Josh Williams, who's been interviewing with other places. They have Tariq Ahmad. They have RJ Gillen. They have guys, but it's like if you look at their draft history the last 4 years, I don't want any of those guys. I want someone from a different organization: Seattle, LA, Detroit, anyone that's been drafting well in the second, well, since 2020. That's what I think it's the Niners should be humble enough to understand that they have a gap in their program and to bring someone else in, but they're not. This organization is just, I'm going to use the word, they're a little arrogant. And I would understand it if they'd won those two Super Bowls, but they didn't. They
Well,
didn't.
the other thing, Grant, also is what criteria is the head of the personnel department for the 49ers giving the scouts to go out and evaluate players? What are the criteria? What are the key things that they're seeking at linebacker, at offensive lineman, at wide receiver, at corner, at safety, at running back, at quarterback? There's got to be, a checklist when you go through and you evaluate all the film and all the tape. You got to be able to come up with an answer and say, does this guy fit the mold that we have for that position in our offense and in our defense? And sometimes it's a hard question to ask, but you know what? You got to be able to ask the tough questions and you got to be able to give the tough answers.
I get the feeling that John Lynch doesn't really make picks, that his job, what he does, as opposed to Balky, who was like, I'm a personnel guy. I'm not going to ask John and Jim Harbaugh and Vic Fangio what they want because I know what good players are. And that really, it was like the other end of the spectrum. I think John's like, all right, well, I'm just going to ask the coaches and they'll tell me. And then I'm the good guy. But it seems like from Kyle's perspective, I could be like, hey, man, like, you're asking me who to pick. This isn't my job. I tell you who to pick. The guy doesn't work out, and then you tell Jed like, "Well, that was Kyle's pick." Why am I doing my job for you? You make the pick, and if it's a bad pick, then you get fired for it. Like, stop asking me to do your job.
See, the bottom line, Grant, also, though, it is that you have to have a formula for each position.
Mm,
A player has to fit it: height, size, weight, speed ratio, ability for change of direction, quabs, and all that, how they play the game, how they respond, and how they fit in that regard. And your scouts have to know that. And so if the player doesn't meet those specifications, and also the key thing is, okay, if I'm running a four-man line in the wide nine, there are certain draftable eligible players who may not fit that scheme. So regardless
yep.
of how well they played in college or how well they played at another NFL club, I may not necessarily want them on the 49er roster because I don't have a position where their attributes can fit with the scheme that Salah's going to be ran or who the new defensive coordinator is going to be running. Same thing offensively. You know, you've got to have a mold. You know, if you want offensive a guard who can pull and run and kick out and trap and wrap and all that, well, that eliminates some of the players. If you want to tackle who can pass protect first, run
Yeah.
block second, well, then, that eliminates some other guys who are not good pass protectors naturally coming out. You've got to be able to make the determination and decide what do you want at each particular position, and then stick to your guns when it comes time to make the pick.
All right, let me ask you this. They got to replace Robert Saleh. We asked John and Kyle yesterday at the press conference, and they made it pretty clear that Gus Bradley is the top choice. There's a few more people they'll look at, but they've had him here for a year. He runs the same system as Saleh. They're friends. He knows the players know him. They like him. Tom, what do you think? Should Gus Bradley be the next defensive coordinator? What do you think?
I'm sorry if I were in that position. Just as a total football decision, I would not make Gus Bradley my defensive coordinator. I'm sorry. I cannot do it. I don't care how well you like the guy, how well the players like him. I don't care about that. Can the guy coach defense? Can he make the calls? Can he make the adjustments? Does he have the resume to show that he has been able to do it in the past? In my mind, there are only about 2 or 3 guys in the league who I would want to bring in as a defensive coordinator. And I would make every effort I could to go out and get those guys.
Who are those guys?
Well,
the
number one,
let me guess.
You want to guess.
Number one is Jim Schwartz.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yep.
People don't realize how good a coordinator. Now, forget the head coach crap about Jim Schwartz. Mm-hmm. Let's look at him as a defensive coordinator. Mm-hmm. He is if I'm running the wide nine that they want to run in San Francisco, there's one guy at the top of my list who's a quote unquote a free agent right now, who I should go after. And I'll say, okay, I need this guy. He's the originator, theoretically, of the wide nine scheme. Why would I want anybody else? He's the innovator, not the imitator. Now, see, that's the other problem I'm going to get to with Gus Bradley. Gus is an imitator. He is not an innovator. The imitator never is on the same plane and the same level as the innovator, because while you as the imitator are trying to learn what the innovator did, the innovator is on a different level, already evolving on his original concepts that he had in the first place and tweaking things at a level to which you as the imitator don't even have a clue.
And they just want him to imitate Robert Saleh.
No, that ain't going to happen.
Yeah, it's not going to be able to. But he was there. He knows Robert Saleh. He watched Robert Saleh. Now he's not Robert Saleh.
That doesn't count. That's like telling me that you're going to come in there and have a different chef who's going to say, well, he watched Emeril Lagasse make this, Cajun mix or whatever. So all of a sudden, Emeril Lagasse's not there. Well, we're going to run in this backup guy.
He was watching. He was in the kitchen, Tom.
That ain't the same,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Their taste buds are not the same. Just like Gus Bradley cannot think like Robert Saleh. Just like he won't think like DeMeco Ryans did.
Well, here's the thing. I believe Jim Schwartz is under contract for one more year, and the Browns don't have a head coach, but it sounds like they want the next head coach to keep Jim Schwartz because he's good and Myles Garrett likes him. If they can't get Jim Schwartz, is there anyone else you like?
Oh my goodness. That's a tough decision because here's the other thing. Who else in this National Football League runs a wide nine scheme? See, the bad thing about it, Grant, is if you can't find a wide nine guy, now you're going to go out and say, I'm going to hire Joe Dokes because, I'm going to go hire Brian Flores, for example, because he's a good coordinator, but he doesn't run the wide nine. But I'm going to bring him to San Francisco and say, I want you to run the wide nine.
I want
Okay.
you to work with Chris Cassera.
That is not going to work. That doesn't fly.
What I want to say is, wouldn't it be cool? You've been running the wide nine since 2019. How about evolve? How about bring in someone else who doesn't necessarily run the wide nine? And if he wants to do something else, if he wants a different defensive line coach, do it. Because it seems like the reason you're going for Gus Bradley is it allows you to keep people who are already on the staff, which is a bad reason to go for a defensive coordinator that no one else wants, no other team wants.
Okay, here's another problem, Grant. Is this a move also to continue to placate certain players on the defense?
Oh, like Fred Warner, Nick Bosa?
Exactly. See, that's another thing now. The other thing is if I bring in Jim Schwartz, he's going to coach the wide nine, but he's not going to play the same charitable coverage schemes that Salah play because Schwartz is going to play more man-to-man. Even though he's running the wide nine, he's going to be more aggressive. He's not going to allow you to walk up and down the field on him and say, give me a 14-play drive, an 18-play drive, a 16-play drive. You got the Niners giving up the ball for 38 or 40 minutes in the game. That's not Jim Schwartz. But he's going to play the wide nine, but he's not going to let you walk up and down the field and play catch all day with their receivers and then worry about stopping you in the red zone. He's going to shut you down. How many turnovers did the Niners get this year, Grant?
Oh, my goodness. I know they had 6 interceptions. They're at the bottom of the league. They're just so passive.
They are so passive. They acquiesce to the opponent predicated on the premise that the opponent will not be able to execute consecutively and significantly to take the ball up and down the field. They bank on the opponent screwing it up.
Bradley's going to be even more passive than Robert Saleh. That's why he keeps getting fired.
I'm sorry, you cannot play vanilla defense in the NFL.
What about, I got 3 names for you. What about Sean McDermott? Forget the wide nine. You know what I'm saying? Like, forget the wide. I just want the best coordinator for the job.
No, Sean's excellent. There's no question about that. He cut his teeth as a defensive coordinator for years. He's brilliant mind. It's not a wide nine scheme now. I'm sorry.
Good. How about Jonathan Gannon?
Oh, I hate to say this. I go back to what Jonathan did not do in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that was kind of bad.
And not only once, but twice in the same game, in the same area of the field, with the same concept, which Andy Reid ran against them, both of which gave up touchdowns. That hangs on me. That's like that's a bitter. I would not be able to get over that mindset mentally myself if I were the head coach and Gannon was my defensive coordinator. That would linger in my brain.
One more name. Raheem Morris.
Now, there's a guy who's a pressure guy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that doesn't fit. See,
that's the antithesis of what the Niners do.
Exactly. You're talking about going from A to Z. You went from one end of the alphabet. You went from alpha to omega. You went all the way to the end.
Sean McVay liked him.
Yeah, I know, but the Rams don't play the defense the Niners play either.
That's true. They're a 3-4. That's true.
Yeah, it's a total different concept.
But like the Seahawks are technically a 3-4, but they never are in their base defense. I mean, they're a nickel defense.
I know they're in a 4-2-5 concept,
right?
4-1-6.
Yeah.
Okay. And here's the other thing. Now they play combination coverage schemes that are anathema to the Niners. They are not even in the playbook. The Niners don't even know how to attack Seattle's secondary schemes. I watched the
Yeah.
all 22, the sideline version the other day. Oh my God, it is embarrassing to watch some of the concepts which Kyle tried to execute. And I can see why Brock Purdy's back there, salt and pepper in the ball, peeling and eating it like a banana. There's nobody open. There's nobody attacking anybody. I'm sorry. It just, I felt so badly for he had nowhere to go with the ball. And the other thing, he's going left to right, right to left, and he's looking for somebody. Please, somebody get your butt open so I could throw you the ball. Not even a guy 15, 18, 20 yards up the field. They got four guys up there jogging out, having a hot dog and a soda. They're not even close to being open.
Okay. That brings me to my next topic. This is a perfect transition. So Brock isn't getting help. Brock is the franchise quarterback. Brock's the 7th highest paid player in the league. We just saw John Harbaugh and Sean McDermott get fired. These are guys with winning records, guys who have a lot of success, consistent success, get fired because they couldn't get over the hump with elite franchise quarterbacks. And I think they made the right call, which brings us back to the 49ers. The Niners have an elite franchise quarterback, according to what everyone tells me about Brock Purdy. He's the best, or one of them. How many more chances is Kyle going to get now that he doesn't have the excuse of having Jimmy Garoppolo as his quarterback?
Well, Grant, to be truthful, I watch the routes that receivers are running, in addition to the scheme or the, how should I say, the concepts which Kyle's trying to run. And to be honest, sometimes the concepts that he's trying to run don't even fly. On the other hand, some of the quality of the routes which the receivers are running are horrible. Who's coaching those guys? They have no clue about how to get open. They don't have any stems. They don't have any feelings. They don't have any stick moves in their routes. If they get open, it's because the defense allows them to get open. Well, Seattle did not allow them to get open. So these guys had no skill, no adept ability at running a route to be able to get open rather than to have the defense allow them to be open. And so there's a combination of factors that are in there. Okay. In fact, I don't know if you noticed during the ball game, Brock started dropping deeper in the pocket to buy himself more time to be able to hopefully get the ball to a receiver and to be able to get himself further away from the pressure. And he was taking a bigger drop even in the gun. He was like at 10 and 11 yards at times rather than at 9 yards or 8.5 yards in the gun to get the ball out. He was trying to buy himself time, hoping that somebody would get open to where he'd have a chance to throw the ball. Then a couple times you look at the flare controls that Kyle has with the patterns, and he's got guys crossing in the middle of the field from the left side and from the right side, but he needs those guys out in the flats so they have an over-under on a corner or a linebacker out there. And instead, they've got receivers outside the numbers, but they have no high-low scheme on the defender. So then the quarterback looks out to the right or to the left, and the DB is sinking underneath the receiver to where he'd like to throw the ball because there's no one underneath as a flare control guy to put that defensive guy in a position of conflict. So he's got to make a choice. And then I, as the quarterback, can throw the ball to the other guy. The guy's not there.
So what you're saying is that it's not that the Seahawks have Brock Purdy's number. It's that the Seahawks currently have Kyle Shanahan's number. His pass patterns are not working against this defense. They have they know what he's doing before he does it, and he has to figure out something new from a schematic standpoint.
Well, some of the concepts are not attacking it like it should. And then other times he has the concept correctly, but the route is not being run with the authority and with the integrity with which it needs to be run to be able to get open.
Like if they had Brandon Ayuk or something.
Correct. And see, so right now they're hitting and missing on too many cylinders. And then the quarterback's the guy back there, holding it and eating it, hoping and praying for someone to get open. And then there's a couple times that if I were Brock, I'd say, screw it. I'm taking the check down now because I'm looking at the covers and they watch everyone sink from the line of scrimmage on the snap. And my receivers are out there up 18, 19 yards. Hey, I'm bringing the ball out underneath right now. I don't care. I'm throwing the check downs, get the ball out of my hands, and get some positive yardage, and then hopefully come back at 2nd and 4, 2nd and 6, 3rd and 3, rather than 1st and 10 to 2nd and 10 to 3rd and 15 or whatever it's going to be, and get the ball out of my hands.
I just think it's interesting. It's like, hey, Kyle, if you can't help Brock schematically, I mean, you're supposed to be this cheat code who makes all quarterbacks better. But if you can't really do anything to help against the Seahawks because you're so outmanned, then we got to talk about the personnel that you put together. I mean, you haven't had a top 10 offensive line ever since you've been with the 49ers. Brock deserves that. You got to give him a top 10 offensive line because when he's not under pressure, he's really good. And you have to give him 2 wide receivers because right now it seems like he has none. So if you can't provide a top 10 offensive line, if you can't provide new young wide receivers, you might be in the way. Maybe someone else could do it.
Well, you need to have a scheme that affords you to compensate for what you don't have offensively. And, it's just, I know people talk about how for years, Bob McKittrick, one of the best offensive line coaches for generations in the old days, the Niners really did not have great high draft picks in their offensive line. McKittrick, though, was a hell of an offensive line coach. And they ran certain plays and they blocked them like they knew them like the back of their hands. But there was precision in the way that Dwight Clark, Jerry Rice, John Taylor, all those guys ran routes. There was precision in the footwork of the quarterback. There was precision in how Rathman and Roger Craig and the other backs ran check downs and check releases, or they ran patterns, routes out of the backfield. So there is a precision that is lacking right now in my mind when I look at the wide receivers and the tight ends, especially in terms of how they're running their routes. They're not helping the quarterback. They're not precise enough. They are not demanding. The coaching staff is not making demands. Maybe they don't think it's important, but let me tell you something. You have to be able to get open as a receiver. You cannot expect the route called to create an opening for you. You've got to work to get open. And I don't see it.
Let's talk wide receiver. From what I'm hearing, the 49ers obviously understand that wide receiver is a big problem for them. And maybe they'll draft another one. They drafted Ricky Pearsall, hasn't worked out yet. Jawan Jennings, impending free agent, they might re-sign him. From what I'm hearing, according to a source, the 49ers have already inquired about Jordan Addison. Jordan Addison recently got arrested for the 3rd time, so the Vikings apparently aren't going to pick up his 5th-year option and are open to trading him. But his most recent charges were dropped. The Niners last year signed DeMarcus Robinson, who was coming off, 100 miles an hour and basically a DUI, and they signed him anyway. So there's precedent here. Jordan Addison, I'd love to know what you think. There was a report, Tim Kawakami wrote an article today saying that the Niners actually should go get Justin Jefferson and make the Vikings an offer they can't refuse. So I asked my source, I'm like, is there any chance, who's close to the Vikings, is there any chance that the Vikings would trade Justin Jefferson? He said there is a 0% chance that would happen. What the Vikings want to do is add a quarterback. They want to trade McCarthy and Greenard and 2 first-round picks for Joe Burrow if he's available. And if not, they might go back and get Kirk Cousins. They're not rebuilding. Their GM's on the hot seat. So Justin Jefferson's a pipe dream. Let's put that to the side. What do you think about Jordan Addison, who seems to be available?
Okay. He may be available, and he may be talented and all that, but how is he going to fit into Kyle's pass offense? Kyle could not find a way to use Ayuk when Ayuk was healthy.
Not that much.
Not that much. So what is going to tell you as a probing journalist and a thinker and the quality control guy, how is he going to use, the kid from the Vikings, Addison, any better than he could not use Brandon Ayuk?
He'd probably give him 100 targets. He'd probably catch 70 balls. He might go for 1,000 yards and have like 6 or 7 touchdowns. But at least he probably played 14, 15 games, unlike Ricky.
Oh, yeah, but the bottom line is, though, can Kyle design a pass offense that can be tailored to be able to feature Addison in the routes that Addison runs the best and be able to find a way to make it work? Because if he brings him into the current offense, the way it's being coached and the way it's being run, what's going to be? He might be a faster guy, but he's still going to be running the same crap.
And what makes
So
the
how's
Niners
that going
feel
to
like
get him
they
open
can
against Seattle?
what makes the Niners feel like they can sort of like get the best out of Jordan Addison when like Brandon Ayuk just I mean, like they've had really bad luck with young wide receivers who are expensive and have sort of a mischievous streak. That's Jordan Addison. Why? I mean, you're just getting past Brandon Ayuk. This guy does a lot of the same stuff.
Well, there was a problem with Deebo Samuel also. He was not exactly a great fit from a personality perspective for the Niners. They had some troubles with him as well. You
Yeah,
know, it gets back to your expectations and your discipline for them as a wide receiver, as a quarterback, as a whatever your concepts are, how you coach them, and how you teach them, and how they respond to you. And that's the biggest weakness. I mean, go back to a wide receiver who is over the years that Kyle's been there. Name a guy who's been a great route runner.
maybe
Not a
Emmanuel Sanders at the end of his career.
Yeah, not a gadget, but see, he got trained someplace else. Okay.
Correct. Yep.
So he learned how to run routes someplace else.
Back when
Name
Pittsburgh had the best wide receiver coach in the league, I think he may have passed away. Pittsburgh. Remember, that's where Emmanuel Sanders started his career. They used to have a great wide receiver coach. He developed a lot of guys. Mike Wallace, Antonio Brown.
Yeah. Well, the thing about it is, so if you don't have a guy to name a receiver, though, then who the Niners have developed, drafted, and coached, who basically can measure up to what is needed to be successful in the league.
They have one guy. It was Brandon Ayuk, and he's gone. It's not Ricky.
No.
So, and they used to have a pretty good wide receiver coach in Wes Welker. I thought he was pretty good. I don't know about Leonard Hankerson.
I just don't see it. I just watch, even in the tapes they used to shoot during the training camps and all that, and I watch them in the games. Their releases, even against bump and run, I mean, my God, they never stack the defensive back. They're running to the sideline. They bow to get away. It's just, you got to think through and beyond the corner versus bump and run. You can't get occupied looking right at, there's so many things that would just drive me stinking nuts. I would have to take those receivers back to school day one and say, okay, this is how we're going to play the game. This is how we're going to work on releases. This is how we're going to work on our stems and our routes, our stick moves, our feedings, our sprint phase, our breaking point phases, and go back to basic 101 football as a wide receiver.
All right, let me ask you this. We asked about Mac Jones at the press conference yesterday, and they said, we'll take calls on anyone, just like we'll take calls on ourselves. But we would be so shocked if Mac Jones wasn't on this team next year, because he's just he really made Brock better. Do you buy that? It sounds like they're kind of just telling the league, like, hey, you better offer something really good because we love Mac Jones. Do you think they'll trade Mac Jones? Should they trade Mac Jones? How do you feel?
Well, okay, let's go back to this thing. When's the last time Brock Purdy played an entire season as a quote-unquote healthy quarterback?
He did it once in 2023. He sat the final game because they had clinched, but he did play through injury that season, and that's the only season he's done it.
Correct. So therefore, okay, let's say you trade Mac Jones. Who is going to be your new number 2 quarterback?
Curtis Rourke from Indiana.
Who's your next Mac Jones?
Curtis Rourke.
See, I tell you, this is going to sound crazy, but if I'm sitting over in Henderson, Nevada, I would rather have Mac Jones playing quarterback and use my draft picks and make trades to get other players at other positions, and I can take Mac Jones and I can win with Mac Jones. I mean, win with a capital W. That guy can play quarterback.
Yep. So why spend the first round pick on Mendoza, who is going to fail on the Raiders because the Raiders aren't good? Why not trade down, like get like the Bryce Young package where someone trades a bunch of picks if you can for a quarterback, and now you have all these assets, and then you bring in Mac Jones, who probably isn't that much worse than Fernando Mendoza. Fernando Mendoza might not even be good. He hasn't proven anything.
Yeah. It's a transition from Indiana. No matter what Cignetti did there, it's going to be a light and day deal to being up in Vegas playing quarterback. The other thing about it is uh, the draft picks are key because the Raiders are more than just a one player away from being even a 500 ball club. Okay.
Yep.
And so I can get a multitude of picks. And this is a very crummy year to be looking for a quarterback in the NFL. Dante Moore stayed at Oregon. He probably would have been taken as the second quarterback in the draft. Now, the next quarterback in the draft is some kid named Tyler Simpson from Alabama, a nice kid who still looks like he should be in high school. He's going to be probably the 15th or 16th, someone, Pittsburgh or the Jets with their second first round pick, who are drafting at 15, 16, or 17. He's going to be taken that far down the ladder, but that's a stretch to even make him a first round draft pick. Then the next kid is you got this kid at Mississippi who's coming out early because he couldn't get his the courts to reverse his deal. He at best is no better than a late second round draft pick. There are no quarterbacks in the draft. And no disrespect to Fernando Mendoza. The guy had a great championship ball game. He had a great season, 16-0, great player. But you look at his talent level, you look at his grade, his real grade, not your emotional grade, his grade. He's not John Elway. He's not Jim Kelly. He's not Dan
He's
Marino.
A lot closer to Mac Jones. He's a lot closer to Mac Jones than those guys.
Exactly. And so you're going to take your first pick of the draft, which should be saved for a guy who's a Pro Bowl lock player, and you're drafting this young kid from Indiana because you need a quarterback.
Yeah.
But next year, when you have all these other quarterbacks come out, you're going to say, oh, my goodness, this guy's better than Mendoza. That guy's better than Mendoza. Yeah. This guy's better than Mendoza. But you took Mendoza last year, so,
you can't take him.
No.
Yeah. Let me ask this, though, for the Raiders' perspective. Okay, trade down. Trade for Mac Jones if you can. What about trade Max Crosby? And what about trade Max Crosby to the 49ers? Do you think they would trade Max Crosby to the 49ers, or do you think Mark Davis just wouldn't do it?
Here's the thing. I don't know if the Niners have enough high draft pick sequence for me to take Max Crosby. See, if I'm trading Max, I'm not just trading for the 28th and 29th pick this year and then the number one next year. I want a top 10 pick. Yeah. For this year and a high second. I want to be able to get premium draft picks in selections, not just a volume of draft picks, because drafting at 27, 28, 29 is like the second round to me. I'm not going to get a lock Pro Bowl player where if I get in the top 8, top 10, I will get quality picks for Max.
Yeah.
And see, that's the other thing. It's not just a matter of trading him, but trading him for what? And I can't trade him for some middle to late first round draft picks, even if you gave me 2 first round draft picks and the 3rd and the 5th, and then another one next year and another 3 or whatever. But if you're a winning ball club, your picks are at the bottom of each round. That's not enough for Max.
Look, let me come back to Mac Jones for a second. I think they should keep Mac Jones because I don't think that Brock Purdy can stay healthy. But you can make the argument that, he's the franchise quarterback with what they're paying him and the state of the roster, all the needs that they have and their limited draft picks and resources to really fill these needs. You could argue that they can't afford to have such an asset on the bench and that, they need to trade him and bring in a young star and put the pressure on Brock to stay healthy. I mean, is there anything to that?
Well, but the bottom line, Grant, is if Mac Jones goes off and is in another franchise wearing someone else's uniform next year, I'm concerned about who is the number 2 quarterback. And it can't be some guy who has been, eating sunflower seeds on the sideline and has not taken any snaps. I've got to be able to win in the NFC West, play Seattle, play the Rams twice each team. You've got to have a bona fide quarterback.
Yeah.
You
could argue a big difference between this season and last season is Mac Jones. They had Mac Jones when things went bad.
Yeah.
And if Brock gets hurt next year, the wheels could fall off.
If they did not have Mac Jones this year, Who would have been
No
the
playoffs.
second quarterback? They would have been lucky to go 8-9, let alone 10 and.
If they didn't have Mac Jones this year, someone was getting fired. They should be grateful to have Mac Jones. All right, let me ask you this final question. What do you think the Niners need to do to win the Super Bowl next year? They're talking about how they're well positioned. You know, they got cap space. They just won 12 games. They got players coming back. George Kittle tore his Achilles, but he's going to try to make it back mid-season. I don't think they have enough. What do you think what would they have to add in one offseason to truly be in the conversation with Seattle and New England?
Okay, where they are now with the roster they have, they are further away next year than they were this year.
Wow.
I'm sorry
because
to
of the
say
aging
that.
of the stars.
Yeah, you look at Bosa coming back off of a surgery again. Christian McCaffrey, he's older. He's another year older, another year more beat up, another year of rehabbing and trying to get healthy and revitalize his legs. He's basically, taken too many body shots as a running back, and he's lost the juice in his legs. He's not the same. I think he's, 30 years old?
Yeah. Not even. Almost. 29.
Almost.
Yeah, he'll be 30.
And then, you're looking at Kittle coming back from an Achilles. Juwan Jennings is not getting faster as he's getting older. He's going to want more money. And Ricky Pearsall, who knows if he's going to be healthy after the first series of a ball game, because, half the time you see him over in the blue tent on the sideline rather than playing on the field. To be honest, right now, I can't count on him. I'm not impressed with his durability and his availability. And then in the defensive section, they need a linebacker. They need another outside edge rusher. Huff, what did he give you this year?
Nothing. Everyone said, "Oh, he was such a bad fit in Philly, man. Philly didn't know what they had. They couldn't use. Wait till he gets with the." He did the same thing. He did the same thing.
See, so they need a player. They need a starter over there. Okay.
Yep.
And a
starting defensive end, a starting weak side linebacker, maybe a starting strong side linebacker, maybe a starting free safety. So at least 3 starters on defense, two wide receivers.
And they have running backs on the roster, but for some reason Kyle can't get him onto the field.
Yeah,
he's so married to McCaffrey that he's going to run him until the guy drops, and they have to bring a come along out there on the field and haul him off.
Well, his dad did do the same thing to Terrell Davis.
I know that's kind of the Shanahan way.
Yeah.
And then now here's another one that's going to probably shock you. I think it's time to say, Kyle, use check your buddy, 44. Sayonara, Sam. You've been great. You've made all these Pro Bowls because, you're only one of 2 fullbacks in the whole league behind the Baltimore Ravens guy. But we've got to move on from there. So I've got to say adios, muchacha, and go get someone else, either a tight end who can be an H-back, swing back between a fullback and a movement tight end as my fullback guy. But
would you sign Kyle Pitts, free agent?
See, I like Kyle Pitts.
Me too.
I liked him when he came out. I mean, he has downfield ability as a tight end.
Yeah, it's pretty rare.
Now, he can't block like Kittle. Let's be honest now. So he's in a different vein. It's hard to put him as an inline tight end like Kittle and think you're going to run outside zone to his side and all that. So,
but if you turn into a 12 personnel team, you could have him as the backside of an outside zone play, and you could have him be, a factor, a starter. Especially if we're getting rid of use check.
Well, and then you're going to use Tonjes as your third tight end?
Yeah.
I would try to take Tonjes and make him more of the Kittle guy.
This is the thing. Instead of going after Jordan Addison, who, has an arrest record and is going to be expensive, and wide receivers are just a headache anyway, why not do what the Rams are doing and just invest in tight ends? They're cheaper. They're not divas. I'm just saying.
And
tight ends.
Kyle claims that he's a run first guy. So
Apparently,
if you're running 13 personnel, then that's the perfect fit you want. Think of your play.
yeah,
Look, okay, I go back to Matt Stafford's stats. When he's running non-13 personnel, he's, I hate to say it, kind of mediocre. But you put
yeah.
13 personnel on the field for him, all of a sudden his quarterback rating goes up to 113, 110. His touchdowns go through the roof. His completion percentage is up into the high 70s.
Yep.
His play action passing game is so much better. He doesn't move well, but you can still do some bootlegs and things with him with 13 personnel. Think about what Brock would look like running 13 personnel with the play action, plus throwing the bootlegs and the nakeds and the waggle actions and all that with him outside on the perimeter, away from the defensive front where they can't just tee off on him at where he sets up at 7 or 9 yards in the pocket.
I feel like one of the ways that the Seahawks have shut down Kyle Shanahan's offense is Shanahan wants you to match up personnel. Like he's in base. There's use check, so you're going to be in base, and then he can play action you and move your linebackers around. But the Seahawks don't use base defense. They use nickel defense. They're a 4-2-5, a 4-1-6. They got way more speed than the Niners, and they can stop the run.
That's your point.
So,
they've got
right?
more speed on the field than the Niners have to attack them. And the Niners' lack of speed can't beat the Seahawks' speed.
Because it's not like they're physically imposing either. They're also getting beat in the trenches.
If you go back and look at a couple of the patterns that were being run the other day, the Niners had a tight end running a crossing route, but there was a defensive back, not a linebacker, covering the tight end, and he was able to undercut the ball because his speed compensated and was able to overcome the separation the tight end initially created. And see, that 4-2-5 scheme or the 4-1-6 scheme puts better athletes on the field than what you have in 21 personnel. So you're going to struggle. Plus, the multiple defensive back schemes, Grant, are going to allow combination coverages to show up to cover your 21 personnel that you normally would not see if Seattle was playing a base scheme as opposed to a sub defense against your base offense.
And this is why I like Sean McVay so much. I feel like he's so smart in his counters. So, okay, you want to play nickel all the time. You want to be in this light defense because you think you can get away with it. Well, instead of playing into that, why don't we go heavy personnel? We're not going 12. We're going freaking 13. We're taking one of the wide receivers off the field. And if you want to keep all those DBs out there, we'll run it down your freaking throat. And I bet those DBs will overreact to the run and we'll be able to play action. And I think it's really smart. And I'm surprised that Kyle Shanahan hasn't made the same adjustment yet. You got to face this team. You got no answers. You face them 3 times.
Kyle is wedded to his scheme. I'm sorry to say this. He's not wedded to football. He's wedded to his offensive scheme.
Really
There's a difference.
Yep.
McVay is a football coach. Kyle is a scheme coach. Yep. Kyle knows his system. He knows his scheme. But then when the opponent counters with something contrary to what Kyle's used to having his scheme face, Kyle doesn't have an answer because he's not a football guy. He's a scheme guy.
What I don't understand about the use check thing, it's like not to pile on one guy, but why do you use him so much? I mean, you can't run the ball. You're 30th in yards per carry. Whatever blocking he gives you isn't springing the running game. And as a receiver, he'll give you a catch or two a game. Sometimes he'll get down the field, but I don't see much of an advantage for the offense schematically, personnel-wise. Seems like you'd be better off using multiple tight ends or multiple wide receivers, anything else.
Well, interestingly enough, one of the NFC personnel gurus, told me basically the problem with the Niners, as he saw it when he was evaluating them going into the playoffs, is he said they don't have enough explosiveness in their offensive personnel, as he said, to make me or my team's defense have a sleepless night.
Yes, exactly what Steve Young said on the radio. He's like, who is the defense worried about from Wednesday to Sunday? Like, oh my God, Ricky Pearsall, he's way faster than you realize when you get, it's like, there's no one.
See,
There's no one. Who's scared of Jawan Jennings?
Yeah, nobody.
Who's scared of Christian McCaffrey right now?
The bottom line is that puts more pressure on Kyle because he's going to have to find ways to, create plays rather than have players who can make plays with their talent. And
that's where you see like the wide receiver throwing a pass or the double reverse flea flicker. Like, okay, we just don't have the talent. We're going to have to trick you.
We've made this comment multiple times. Kyle looks at offense as a game of plays rather than a game of players. And he does not have the players because he thinks that his plays will win in the end. But the league has caught up to his scheme. They now know how to defense his scheme. So therefore, his scheme can't win for him. And he doesn't have the players who can outplay the opponents.
And so he keeps playing the old guys in their 30s who know his scheme rather than playing young guys who have speed that he would have to develop. Because, I mean, isn't this the same thing that happened with John Gruden at the end with Tampa? Like, he had an offense and it was pretty good. And then he held on to it and held on to it and held on to it and it never evolved. It got steadily worse. And then he got fired.
Well, Al at one time calls me on the phone and we're shooting the breeze and he wants me to talk with Gruden and all that. He says, God, please talk to him about getting the ball down the field. He said, I built the guy a multi-million-dollar practice facility in El Segundo. We got the best grass in the country out there. And he's throwing passes in his pass offense that I could throw in my backyard in Piedmont. And Al says, my God, he's got 200 ways to throw the ball 5 yards down the field. That's his pass offense.
Yes,
you can't win doing that.
Yes, it is. And it seems like now Kyle Shanahan's pass offense is just 200 ways to throw the ball to Christian McCaffrey. And you know what? That's not scaring anyone. Again, as Steve, I love listening to Steve. And Steve said the offense cannot be the Christian McCaffrey show anymore. Can't be that.
Exactly. That's true.
Yeah.
We said that earlier this year.
Yeah.
And, we made a point where I came out and said that the problem with Kyle is that he keeps Christian in the game for so long. He's padding all of his stats to be able to give you the mythical feeling that this guy really is a significant contributor. But his average per play, as I told you before, in 2023, he was averaging 5.4 yards a play.
Yes.
In 2025, it dropped down to 3.2.
Yeah.
That's a big drop.
Yeah.
To go from 5.4 to 3.2.
Yeah. That's not good.
No. And so you have to begin to look at the fact it's like he may be on the field longer, but the guy's running with combat boots on as opposed to, cleats.
At the end of the season, on locker room clear out day, we were asking him about like all the touches he had. And he was like, it's not my job to want to come out of the game. I'm supposed to want to be in there. But like, if they wanted to get another running back, that would be great. I mean, it's kind of sound like, hey, why are you asking me to request to come out of the game? Like, if they ask me to come out, I'll come out. Like, it's on them. And I had to agree with him on that.
It's true. It is.
It's true. Kyle, it's not his job to say, Coach, I think the offense would be better without me today. Like, you can't ever say that.
No. But Kyle's got to come up with the rotation. And during the week, they've got to plan it. They've got to use it in practice. They've got to talk about it in the staff room and in the running back room. They've got to say, okay, here's what we're doing. Here's how we're divided up. You're going to get the first 6 or 7 plays. Then we're going to put in another running back for 4 or 5 plays or for another series. We're going to substitute in the middle of a series when it comes to a certain run or a certain pass. You've got to be ready to transition to be able to put in other players. You can't leave. How many running backs in the league had anywhere close to the number of touches, pass and run that Christian had?
It was irresponsible. And there's running backs who are younger with more vitality and frankly better that teams were like, no, we're not going to, that's just ridiculous. We're not going to do that.
You can't.
No.
The old theory is that if you want him to win the run for the roses on Saturday in the Kentucky Derby, you can't run him like a nag during the week. And see, as your season goes along, you keep running CMC on pass routes, on runs, and eventually by the end of the season, his legs are gone. His legs are shot. His legs are tired. He's fatigued. He's worn down. He's beat up. and he doesn't have the burst and the acceleration and the explosion anymore.
Now, people at home, if you don't know who Tom Walsh is, if you're a little young, he was the offensive coordinator for the Raiders in the 80s when they were winning Super Bowl. I mean, he coached Marcus Allen, Hall of Fame running back, who could do a lot of what Christian did. And from the Raiders' perspective, it was like, what a blessing to have Marcus Allen. But you know what? It's not enough. We got to go get Bo Jackson too. And you guys found a way to have them both on the field together or complementing each other. It was like, hey, Marcus, thank you so much. You're going to the Hall of Fame, but now it's time for you to get off the field because Bo's here. And it's like, why wouldn't the 49ers want another guy? You guys made it work.
You have to sit down now and you have to, lay out a plan. It's like, the hardest part that we had, to be honest, we had one ball and we had 5 guys on offense we had James Lofton, we had Willie Galt, we had Tim Brown, we had Todd Christensen, we had Marcus Allen, we had Bo Jackson, we had Mervin Fernandez, we had James Jett. I mean, you got only one ball.
Could you tell the story of when Mike Shanahan became the head coach and he was watching film and he started watching Marcus? And he was watching them catch passes and what he said and what out. Because I feel like that's kind of, I mean, Christian just caught 90 passes this year. So could you tell that story, please?
Okay.
This
is true.
okay.
We're upstairs in El Segundo in the big meeting area. We're all there as a whole staff, scouts and everybody. We're watching tape. Mike has just been hired as the head coach. Al's sitting there we're running the projector and all that. And we're watching film and he's watching the tape and he's watching Marcus run a route here, run a route there, run the ball here. He goes, this guy could catch over 100 balls a year. He's fantastic. He's great. And Al stops the projector. He says, let me tell you something. He says, if that guy's catching over 100 balls a year, we're not winning any Super Bowls because you cannot have your running back be the feature of your offense. He cannot catch 100 balls coming out of the backfield. Okay. I mean, the guy's starting 5 yards deep in the backfield or 7.5 yards deep from the backfield, or you're using skip motion or float motion and all this other fancy but the guy is still behind the line of scrimmage. He says, if you think he's going to catch 105, 106 balls a season, we're not going to win any Super Bowls with that guy catching that many balls.
Tom, Christian had 102 catches this year. The next highest, the number 2 guy in the Niners, Kittle with 57. 102 for Christian McCaffrey. So Kyle did what Mike Shanahan wanted to do with Marcus Allen in 1987, but Al Davis wouldn't let him.
Well, I'm sorry, but it's true. I tell you, as great as Cliff Branch was, as great as Freddie Bolitnikoff was, as great as Dave Casper was, all of them were Hall of Fame players. You had to be able to spread out the ball. You had to distribute the ball, and you had to so you had multiple weapons. You could not be a one-trick pony and have only one guy be the guy offensively. Even when Bo was healthy, we spelled Bo. There are games, I swear to God, there are games that we could have had Bo run for over 300 yards. There were games we took him out, and he was running 98 yards, 89 yards. Go watch the Bo Jackson highlight tape. I swear to God, that guy he could have blown every running back record out of the water. But what people don't realize, Bo played baseball. Bo was never at minicamp. Bo was never at training camp. Bo missed the first 6 or 7 games of the season because they were still playing baseball. And then he would come in on a Monday or Tuesday. He'd be dressed in pads on Wednesday, be playing on Sunday. He didn't take any time off, but he missed 6 or 7 games. He never knew the whole offense because he was never around for the whole offense. So he learned the game plan from week to week, but he never had exposure to the whole playbook because he was never there. So, I mean, you can't just run them to run them. As much I love Marcus, I love Bo. My God, those guys were phenomenal. I mean, Grant, you don't know what it's like to be there watching those guys and be on the sideline. Our defensive squad, when Bo was in the game, they would be up on the sideline watching Bo run.
Yeah, an alien.
And, Howie Long one time made a comment. He says, when the guy runs by you up the sideline, it's like an 18-wheeler going by you on the highway and you're driving with your little Prius next to him and you get whipsawed because of the drag and the draft of Bo
Wow.
running by you. Oh,
Wow.
I tell you what, seriously, it is a gift to be able to coach that kind of talent. It's
Yeah.
it's you can't believe what it's unbelievable what
And
those athletes, how gifted, how talented, and how coachable they are. I go up to
And I
Bo.
I would imagine that Kyle has deep affection for his, Hall of Fame players because he helped develop them and they helped make him who he is. But at a certain point, even the Raiders said goodbye to Marcus. He finished his career in Kansas City. Like, you can't be overly sentimental.
It's a business.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, that's the other thing you got to realize. And Bill Walsh always had made the point that you had to understand he probably was better friends with a lot of the players after he had released them or after he had traded them than when he was coaching them when they were playing for him. And you have to have that levels of structure and striation in your between the coach and the player, regardless of how friendly you are with them, how conversant you are with them, but there still is a coach-player relationship. It can never be on the same plane. There's always a difference in level of coach
Yeah.
and player.
It feels like certain players in this team have sort of become on the same level as the coach, and that's kind of a problem. Well, we got a bunch of super chats to get through. We also have prize picks. So we got an NFC Championship prize pick edition. No Niners. Let's go. Let's go. Well,
Crush.
Darnold, this is a free play. As long as he has .5 passing yards, we win that one. I'm going to take it. I think it's smart. Stafford, 255 and a half passing yards, more or fewer for Stafford. 255 and a half.
I'll say fewer. If
Yeah.
I am Sean McVay, I'm coming 13 personnel and I'm going to run the ball till the cows come home. I'll play action. I'll wear out Puka Nakua underneath, catching 12 yarders, 15 yarders, but I'm not going to get the ball vertically over the top of the Seahawk defense. So I'm going to have to
Right.
work horizontally and underneath.
Okay. Kyron Williams, 55 and a half rushing yards, more or fewer.
I'll say more.
Yeah. They're going to have to be committed to that. Kenneth Walker on the other side, 85 and a half rushing yards.
Well, without your UCLA sidekick there, Charbonneau, I'm sorry.
Charbonneau.
I said a Charbonnet.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's your white wine guy. No, I say that Kenneth Walker is going to have more yards.
I agree. And you've always been very high on Kenneth Walker. It seems like he likes to bounce he's not a one-cut guy the way Charbonnet is, but he's very dynamic. Let's go receiving yards. Puka Nakua, 91 and a half.
I will say this. I'm going to say fewer because the Seahawks are going to force him to keep the ball underneath. And so he's not going to rip off an 8-yard catch and turn it into a 25-yard gain. Because of the way the Seahawks play, they will corral him. He will make his catches, but they're going to be hard-earned yards.
Yeah, that's true. He gets a lot of yards from people missing tackles, and they don't miss many tackles. Devontae Adams, last one, 49 and a half receiving yards. He did a lot of nothing against Chicago.
I can't see Devontae. Now, there's a guy who's at the twilight of his career. I would not be shocked if he hung it up this year. He's a great receiver, had a great career, but there's a guy physically, though, whose father time has caught up with him.
Yeah. All right. Those are our picks. Take it. We got Sam Darnold, the free play. Prize Picks is generous that way. Tom usually gets his right, so keep that in mind. We're going to flex it just in case. Submit it. Download Prize Picks yourself. Use promo code COHN Cohn. Play $5 and get $50 instantly in lineups when you play that promo code. All right, let's answer some questions. Cyber Radio says, much thanks to Tom for coming on here weekly. He's always got good perspective.
Well, I appreciate that, Cyber Radio. It's fun. I enjoy it. Grant is a great young man. He's got insight. He's aggressive. You've got energy. So, yeah.
Thanks. And you taught me everything I know. Propa says, a coach can't ask for a more stacked roster than they had in 23. Taking the ball first in overtime was inexcusable. DeBartolo would have canned him. That's the other thing that Steve said in his interview. He's like, you know what? I still can't get over. That was the team. They're never going to have a better team than that one. And the fact that they didn't, seize their opportunities still hurts. It's true.
Yeah, you've got to capitalize. People don't realize how hard it is to get to the Super Bowl, let alone win the Super Bowl, and the luck and the health of players and all of the factors that have to come into play to win the games maybe you shouldn't have won, and not to lose the games you should have lost because you were able to make a play or the opponent gave you an opportunity and you were able to capitalize on it. And it's tough sledding.
I mean, that's when Brock Purdy was making about $900,000 a year, and you had all these players in the top 100 that were making money, and now you're hoping that Upton Stout can be a top 10 player, at 24 years old. Maybe he will, but it's a whole different. I mean, they haven't really developed one young star yet other than Brock, in the last 4 years.
Well, hey, Grant, also that 23 roster, if I'm not mistaken, had 9 guys who were in the top 100.
Correct.
So that was the creme de la creme, so to speak, of the roster that you would want to be able to make your run for the Super Bowl and to close it out.
KRNA RMG says, looking ahead, losing George Kittle is never good, but on the bright side, it'll finally get this team to draft a real option at his position. And this year's draft is loaded at tight end, top to bottom.
There are some tight ends. I tell you, you got to really like the kid at Oregon. Oh, my Sadiq, yep. I think, that kid has got talent just dripping from him. In fact, he's built a lot like Kittle. Doesn't block like Kittle right now because at Oregon, they run a different style of offense. But from a physical tool perspective, that young man up at Oregon has got some skills.
Jimmy and Go says, what about Brian Flores? He just signed an extension with the Vikings. I guess he's still in consideration for head coaching jobs. What are you hearing there?
Well, as long as he does not get the head job, he's locked in Minnesota. And I don't know if he'll get hired at Pittsburgh or, I don't even, I just, people talk about him at the Raiders. The thing about, Brady and the crew there, they're going to want either a young guy they can control or they're going to get an older statesman kind of guy, but they're going to want somebody, Brady wants to have his finger on the deal. His thumb is on that pie. And, even he runs it from he's down at St. Bart's and he's still making decisions on what the heck they're going to be doing. And so he'll be over there in Saudi Arabia playing flag football in March. The draft is April 20, whatever the heck it is. And he's over there playing in the desert someplace, pulling in a few $1 million in appearance funds when he should be studying for the draft and be watching tape and have his scouts and his coaches and everyone sitting in the room talking about, what are we going to do? Are we going to make trades? Who do we want to trade? With whom do we want to trade? What are we going to ask for certain spots? But that's got to be your job. I'm sorry, it's a job.
Yeah. Prapa says nothing is more infuriating than the commitment to Jake Turnstile Brendel. Like, genuinely, what do they think when they watch his film?
Sometimes you got to bite your tongue, No, it's disheartening. It's crushing. I was so depressed after that ball game. I thought, oh my God, how can you let a game get away and not even be close to competitive? And it's just like, I felt like at one time, Saleh just started calling defense to call defense. It was like walking down Main Street, leading the parade to the end zone for the Seahawks.
Cameron Dotson says, sign A.J. Brown, Jordan Addison, Kyle Pitts, and trade Pearsall. Let Jennings walk and focus on O-line, D-line in the draft. A.J. Brown's under contract. Those are two volatile wide receivers on a team that hasn't handled volatile wide receivers particularly well.
Yeah, you've got to have a personality.
You got to have Mike Tomlin.
You got to have a wide receiver coach who's got a firm hand and who can command, the attention and drive the car, so to speak, rather than being the passenger and letting the players be the chauffeurs. It can't work.
All day, every day, Kim says, why would any wide receiver with deep speed want to play with a quarterback who can't throw past 30 yards accurately? Kyle will get you open, but the ball may not get there.
Well, but the thing about it is you could go back to Joe Montana days and, when Bill Walsh offered Joe Montana to us at the Raiders, we sat down in the room and we're watching tape after tape after tape. And, finally, I remember Tom Flores looks at me and I look at him and I just say, as great as he is for San Francisco, he wouldn't have been, quote unquote, a Raider quarterback. And
Yep.
he won Super Bowls. He had great stats because he could function tremendously well in Bill's offense.
Mhm.
But just because a guy can fit that offense doesn't mean he can fit another offense. John Elway was the guy we wanted to trade. The league shut us down and would not let us make the trade for Elway. When he came out,
Interesting.
they shut down that trade. They shut
Oh,
down
wow.
Al. Yeah, no, the league shut it down.
Wow. They didn't want him. They wanted him to be on a team with a better image.
They knew if we would have had Elway, it would have been all over but the shouting. Let me tell you.
Okay.
Can you
Uh,
imagine that arm on our offense? Holy
that would have been
Toledo.
incredible. Benno's good. Says it just me or is this one of the most important off seasons for the Niners in the Shanahan era? I think it is.
Well, Ben, to be honest, I would, if he can't get it done this next year, he'll never get it done.
Say that again.
Well,
Say that one more time.
if he cannot get it done this next year, he never will get it done. He's had this to be his 10th year, I believe. They need to go into the free agent market. They need to change how they go at the draft. They've got to make some significant dynamic changes with their player personnel. And they, as coaches, need to look at it from a different lens. He needs to get a new pair of glasses because those rose tinted glasses he's wearing now, they don't have the answers written on the lenses. He needs to re-look and re-examine and change how he's looking at things.
So if you were Al Davis, or if you were, Jed York, and you were owning this team, and you're like, look, Kyle, been so patient. You're entering year 10. We got you your franchise quarterback. You need to win the Super Bowl this year, or we're going to do something else. Is that how you would feel?
Yeah. Here's what I would do. If Jed had a clue, I would go out and see. Tampa Bay made a great decision years ago when they brought in Tom Moore, who had been with the Colts. And I knew Tom when he first was coaching with the Steelers back in the early 80s when he was a wide receiver coach. And he was coaching Peyton Manning at Indianapolis. And then he goes down to Tampa Bay with Arians and those guys, and they end up winning Super Bowls. But see, my thing is that the Niners need somebody like that who can go to Kyle and say, okay, here is a veteran of 62 years in the league, okay? 62 years coaching, and say, okay, this is what needs to be done. You've got to be able to make this transition. You've got to be able to make this step. You've got to be able to do this. You need to change this. I can sit down with the tape and show him step by step of what changes need to be made. But will Kyle make those changes? Will he change himself? You know what? As much as they need to change players, he needs to change how he's approaching the game of football, how he's coaching his offense, how he's calling the plays, what he's doing. He needs to evolve himself. You cannot just expect players to evolve and then you're running the same old damn system again with the same thought process, the same play calling sequence. That ain't going to cut it. I'm sorry, but that's the truth.
I want to see him evolve this year. I want to see him make a deep playoff run, go to the Super Bowl, win it. Otherwise, you don't get year 11. All day, every day, Kim says, if Sam wins the whole thing with MVP, oh boy. Yeah, oh boy is right. Justin S. says, trade Mac Jones for a top 50 pick while they can. Think they get a top 50 pick for him?
No. I'm sorry they won't.
No.
You won't, even the Jets or the Steelers or some of those guys who need quarterbacks, I just can't see them giving away a first or even a high second round pick for. What did the Niners pay to get him?
Oh, 2 years, $9 million, 2 years, $10 million. Yeah.
Right. So now, he's still under contract for one more year, correct?
Yes.
Okay. He can't veto a trade, correct? He doesn't have that power.
Okay? Absolutely not.
No. So then the Niners could have a wish list of saying, well, we'd like to get a second for the guy, but then you're going to have to sign and trade him. Because to whomever he goes for the new contract, they're going to want a new deal with him. So Mac Jones is going to want a heck of a lot more than $4.5 million to be your starting quarterback this next year. When you got guys like Geno Smith making 30-something million dollars.
Yeah.
See, so that's another issue with Mac Jones that people have to realize is it's going to have to be a sign and trade. And when he's going to go somewhere, he will go there as the starting quarterback. So he's going to want starting quarterback
Starting
money.
quarterback money, yes, and that's at least $30 million a year.
At least
So
30, 35 minimum.
okay, well, that'll be interesting. Keep in mind the Niners will not be trading for Justin Jefferson, despite reports. That's not going to happen because why would the Vikings do something so stupid? They won't. I guarantee it. Tom, great stuff this season, and we can do it as much in the offseason as you'd like. There's going to be things to talk about. It's a pretty big offseason.
Well, I tell you, free agency is going to be huge, and the draft is going to be a monstrosity. And where are the Niners picking this year? What are they going to be?
27 ish, something like that. Yeah.
So they're going to, they'll probably end up drafting an offensive lineman. They got to find somebody to be the next Trent Williams. Okay, that's number one for them. Also in the offensive line, they got to have a left tackle who currently is not on the roster. And then
your best offensive lineman can't be 38.
No. And the other thing in the second round, they better be drafting the best wide receiver they can find on the board. And then they need an inside linebacker, So, they have needs. They have needs that they need to hit on players this year. They cannot have swings and misses.
Yeah, they need our help, Tom. So we'll be here, rain or shine. Great stuff, Tom. Thank you very much. I'll talk to you soon.
Have a good weekend, Grant.